Hi there, I'm Vincent Bos and I provide dating and self-improvement advice. And in today's podcast, we're going to be discussing let them go so they can regret. I provide audio coaching for breakup recovery, trying to get an ex back, attracting someone new, and life coaching. Visit www.dateme.tips for more details. Please check your spam and junk folders if you are expecting an email from me. Check out my socials for extra content. The links are in the description. So now let's get back into today's podcast. And today we are discussing let them go so they can regret. So if you have been dumped and want to try to get your ex back, you will likely be shocked to hear me suggest that you let them go. In today's podcast, I'll be discussing 3 reasons why you must let your ex go so they can regret. So let's get straight into this, and point number 1 is why this matters. So today we're speaking about the principle of you letting go, stop chasing your ex, you focusing on your own journey, why that you need to do that so that they can feel regret. Regret for the breakup, regret for the situation that they've decided to put you both in. But why does this matter? Why does this have a relevance to you trying to get your ex back? Well, if your ex doesn't have a change of heart, you will never get them back. Let's think about this logically. If they don't change their mind, if they don't have a mindset shift about what they feel about you and them and the potential for this relationship to work moving forward into the future, if they don't change their mind, then you're never going to get them back. They're never going to be in a position where they want to reconnect. Now, we need them to feel differently. And if they regret their decision, then that's a very good start. Now, of course, it's not the only position where you could get your ex back. You might get your ex back later down the line, 9 months down the line, for instance, and they might say, well, I don't regret the breakup because at the time that was the decision that I felt was right. However, now things have changed. Okay, so technically speaking, they don't have to feel regret for the breakup for them to one day want to reconnect. However, if they do feel regret, if they do feel remorse, then that is a very good step because it brings things further forward much quicker. So to reiterate that point, do you need your ex to actually regret the decision to end your relationship? Well, no, you don't necessarily need that. But if you were to get them back, it would be much further down the line. We're talking a long-term breakup before they might decide to reconnect. And then they might say, well, I don't regret ending things. That was the right decision then. But now I've changed my mind. However, what we're talking about here is trying to make things a little bit quicker. Now, don't get me wrong. The average amount of time that I've seen dumpers reach out to dumpees wanting to reconnect is around that 6 to 12 month mark. That's the average. So that is still going to be the likely possibility of if and when you hear from your ex again. And that's if you do. We have to be honest. There is no 100% guaranteed way to get an ex back. Nothing works 100% of the time and nothing fails 100% of the time. But that is the likely time frame if you were to hear from your ex again. But it doesn't mean that you can't get your ex back sooner. It doesn't mean that you can't hear from them much quicker than 6 months. Remember, that is the average. That means we are also considering dumpers who reach out to dumpees after 2 years. That's kind of stretching it that way. But then the other end of the scale are when dumpers reach out after maybe a couple of months. Okay, maybe even sooner than that. But that is not the average time. The average time is around half a year. But if you can get your ex, the dumper, to feel regret and remorse for the breakup itself, that will likely mean that you hear from them again sooner than if they didn't. Now, I can't guarantee you'll get your ex back. Nobody can. But what I can say is that you will be giving yourself the best possible chance of success if you can make them feel that regret and that remorse. If you can get them to feel, actually, that was a really bad error of judgment. I should have tried to maintain our relationship. I should have tried to work on our relationship. I should have communicated better. And I wish I had done things differently, and therefore I'm now going to reach out and try to see if we can try and get back together. That is the ideal position. It's not the only way to reconnect. It's not necessarily an easy way to reconnect, but that is why it is important that they feel regret. Again, it doesn't matter if they do or they don't necessarily in the long term, but you don't want to be waiting over a year, theoretically, to get your ex back. So if you want them back sooner, they need to feel regret. So now let's get into point number 2 and the second point of today's podcast. Please like this video if you're watching on YouTube, and if you have the new hype feature, please hype this video as well. If you like my content, subscribe to the channel to keep updated. And point number 2 is why letting them go helps this. So remember, we're speaking about today, let them go so they can regret. And as I said in point number 1 about why it is so important that we can get them to regret the breakup, but point number 2 is why does letting them go actually help that? Why does letting them go enable the possibility of them feeling regret much, much sooner, and in essence, them feeling it at all, because not all dumpers will get to that point. Well, I want to just tell you a proverb, which you may have heard before, but it's really, really important that we think of right now. And that is, if you love something, set it free. If it comes back, it's yours. If not, it was never meant to be. Now that is a very powerful proverb. Like I said, you may have already heard of it. And in my belief, there is a lot of truth to that. Now, you could be in a relationship which unfortunately is breaking down. You might know that your partner wants to leave, and you might persuade them to stay with you. You might persuade your ex to come back to you. Maybe they did action of a breakup, and you do persuade them. You say anything you can to think of a reason to get them to stay. Maybe you see it as persuading, maybe you see it as just you explaining as per why you two should be together. Now, either way, if they don't come to that conclusion themselves, I would suggest this isn't authentic. And if you try and persuade your ex, or gosh, even worse than that, and almost try and force them, which obviously you should never be doing for any reason, but if you were to go down that path, this is not going to be an authentic reconnection. You need your ex to actually want to be in a relationship with you. If deep down they want to be your ex, and instead you have used some type of wording to get them to stay with you, well, that's not real. It's not true. And the likelihood is it will break up very, very soon into the future. And if it didn't, well, there's going to be one very unhappy person, your ex, i.e. the person who's now back with you, but ultimately you will be very unhappy as well, because you will feel their unhappiness. You will feel that they're not with you for the right reason, and therefore, if they're not with you for the right reason, you're not going to get an authentic relationship either. That will make you unhappy. We will have two very unhappy people. You can't force somebody, you can't persuade somebody. It needs to come from them. If you live your life in a way where you can be brave enough, confident enough, living your life for you and not for them, you're more likely to feel happiness. Now, I can't say you will get your ex back, but what I can say, it increases the chance of them missing you. And if they don't miss you, they won't want to be with you. They need to miss you. And that's the point. That is why you need to get to that position. Now, if you decide to let them go, then you are going to be living your life for you, as I've just said, not for them. And the benefit of that is if you don't hear from your ex again, and some of you sadly won't, well, you enable yourself to find happiness with a new person. If you don't get your ex back, you can find someone even better. And if you don't believe me on this, then I must tell you that I've heard this time and time again, including in my own life. So I'm telling you from an authentic place. I have been through many breakups in my past, some worse than others, and now I am happier than I've ever been before, and it is with someone that I've never broken up with. So I'm telling you from a genuine place that I have felt what you are feeling. I wouldn't have believed me either if I'd heard me telling myself that I could find a greater happiness back in the day when I was feeling heartbreak. But you can, and I am the proof. I've also heard lots and lots of my audio coaching clients tell me their own stories over the years about how they have gone from a position of not believing they could find happiness with anybody better, and then they eventually get to that place. Now you might be thinking, well, that's all well and good. but I don't care, I just want my ex back. Well, the good news is you absolutely can do this. When we look at all of the research, all of the studies, on average, 50% of people will get their ex back. It's like tossing a coin, flipping a coin, and seeing which way it lands. Will it be you get your ex back, or will it be sadly that you don't? If it doesn't land where you want it to land, you can find someone even better. That's all I'm trying to say in that regard. Now, the good news is that even though I've just described it as flipping a coin, it doesn't have to be 50-50. It doesn't have to be, well, I might get them back, I might not. No, you can absolutely affect your chances for good, or unfortunately also for bad. If you live your life in a way where you chase your ex, you bother your ex, you harass your ex, you are not going to get 50-50 opportunities here. This is going to be much more weighted in the favour of landing on the side that you don't get your ex back. However, if you use the hints, tips and advice that I give in other podcasts, if you speak with someone such as myself on my audio coaching service, if you live your life in a positive way, improving every single day, implementing all of the tactics and strategies you can do to increase the chance of your ex-dumper feeling regret, remorse and missing you, well, guess what? That coin is going to be weighted in your favour. It's going to be like one of those magic coins where you see at a magic show where it always lands on what the magician wants it to. Of course, it can't be 100% of the time, and even the best magicians will, unfortunately for them, slip up every now and then. Nothing is guaranteed, but you can definitely increase your chance of success. And that's what we do in life. We can't guarantee we'll get that best job, but we can increase our chance of getting that best job by going into higher education. It's the same principle. If you live your life the right way, you are more likely to get the results that you crave. Nothing is guaranteed, but let's make sure we give ourselves the best chance. Now, if you would like advice and support about how to try and increase the chance of one day getting your ex back, then you may want to consider my audio coaching service, where me and you can speak one-on-one about your unique specific situation. Go to my website www.dateme.tips for more information about how I can become your coach and your teammate via my audio coaching service. Talking about your feelings can also improve your mental health. It helps prevent the buildup of negative emotions, which can lead to stress, anxiety, depression, and even physical health issues. Speak your heart to free your mind. So now let's get into point number 3 and the final point of today's podcast. If you feel that this podcast has helped you, then please consider buying me a coffee. The link to do so is in the description. And point number 3 is how to let them go. So throughout today's podcast, I've been speaking about the importance of quote-unquote letting your ex go as a way to hopefully get them to a place where they regret the breakup and want to reconnect with you. But words are very easy to say. How do you actually implement the advice behind the words? How do you let your ex go? Now, this is going to be the point that probably a lot of you are hopefully going to gain the value from, because this is where you can really take that step forward to achieving the goals we've been speaking of today. Now, how do you let them go? Well, initially, you need to be making sure that you remove as many of the triggers as possible from your life which might encourage you to contact your ex. Remember, we're trying to let them go. That means stop chasing them, stop texting, stop calling, stop knocking on their door. For most of you, it would mean if you're a dumpee, you should never contact your ex again unless they contact you first. There are a few exceptions to that rule, but I'm speaking in a generalized sense because I don't know your specifics within this podcast. If we spoke via my audio coaching, obviously, I could help your specifics, but right now, this is generalized. So most of you, if you're a dumpee, never contact your ex again unless they contact you first. But that is easier said than done when you're feeling the triggers, when you're feeling those moments where you really want to reach out. So what can we do to reduce that chance? How can we let them go? Now, one of the biggest problems dumpees have is when they have items of their exes still at their house. Maybe these are things which are somewhat important to your ex. Maybe you know they're not really important, but still, they're in your house. What do you do with them? Now, my suggestion would be, certainly for the first 6 months or so, is not to reach out to your ex if they have items left at your house. In my opinion, most of the time, that would be down to them to reach out to you. okay? In most instances, that is not your job to reach out, although potentially there could be some strategy further down the line. But we're focusing generalized here, like I said. For the first 6 months or so, I would suggest putting all of your ex's items in a box. Not just their items, but anything that reminds you of your ex. Photos, for instance. Anything which could make you think of them in a way which is going to draw you into wanting to chase them and reach out. Once they're in a box, I want you to place this box in a safe place. Maybe the bottom of a wardrobe or closet, maybe under the bed, somewhere that you're not going to see it every single day, somewhere that you would have to deliberately look if you really wanted to. And that's the point. We don't want you bumping into something which is going to trigger you. However, it needs to be in a safe space just in case your ex reaches out. Because if they reach out and you've thrown away all their items after 1 month, that is not going to be the best way to reconnect, which is why I said keep them for at least 6 months. Now, 6 months down the line, you might come to a different conclusion. You might think, well, I'm going to do it for another 6 months. You might think instead, I'm going to reach out. Again, I wouldn't necessarily suggest doing that, but depending on your specifics, which obviously I don't know right now, that could maybe be an option, depending on exactly what it is at your house. Or you might come to a conclusion that you want to donate or maybe even throw away after a certain period of time. Although I wouldn't suggest you do that for a long, long time. Maybe even a year or so. Like I said, a lot of dumpers don't even reach out until the 6 to 12 month mark. So in my opinion, I wouldn't be throwing anything away anytime soon, but that can seem like an awfully long time. So maybe just say to yourself, I'm going to reevaluate after 6 months. If you remove the items that make you think of your ex, their possessions which are at your house, the photos which were up, maybe things that they bought you, technically they're yours, but every time you see them, you think of your ex. Again, same type of thing. Maybe it's an item of clothing that you own and that you even wear that your ex gave you. Maybe it's time to put them in the box as well until you feel, if you ever feel comfortable wearing them, and getting yourself some new clothing items so you're just not thinking of them. If you want to understand the best way of how to let them go, well, I would suggest a really good first powerful step is to make sure that you put any of the triggers away into a box and put them out of sight, out of mind.